I'm quite familiar with the prestigious halls and corridors of this building. This is my second term as Israel's ambassador to the UN. During my first term, I worked towards promoting the integration of Israel into the international community. I experienced the significance of meaningful international cooperation, being elected Vice President of the General Assembly and Chairman of the Sixth Committee. At the same time, I was also exposed to the deep flaws which have infiltrated this organization, its double standards, obsession with Israel, and even blatant acts of anti-Semitism, which are not uncommon. However, I have returned to a different UN, different faces, different attitudes, a different environment, and truthfully, I am representing a different Israel. An Israel forced to fight a war on 7 fronts against those who wish us dead, all connected to their masters, the Ayatollahs of Iran. Distinguished members, as I stand here today, my people are under attack. 10 months ago, a terrorist army invaded southern Israel. They murdered over 1,000 of our citizens and committed the most heinous atrocities: torture, rape, beheading. Hundreds of beautiful young Israelis celebrating life at a music festival, murdered. Hundreds of innocent human beings sleeping in their homes with their families, murdered. Hundreds more were taken hostage into captivity, more brutal than anything we can imagine. To this day, over 100,000 Israelis remain displaced in their own country, unable to return home due to constant rocket attacks from both Hamas and Hezbollah. Tamar Simantov was an artist, a mother, and a community leader. She was running to be mayor of the Eshkol region in the southern part of Israel. Her husband Johnny was an operations manager, loved by his family and their kibbutz near Oz. Together they built a small, beautiful family. They had 3 children, Shachar, Arbel, and Omer. At 6:30 on October 7th, Tamar sent a message to all her friends at the kibbutz WhatsApp group, checking if everyone was safe after rocket sirens echoed through the kibbutz. This is part of the routine for the people who live on the southern border. Just 3 hours later, a final message came on WhatsApp. She had been wounded, and then silence. The last words from Johnny, her husband, to his sister were, "They're here, they're burning us, we are suffocating." In their final moments, Tamar and Johnny held onto each other, trying to shield their children from the evil which had invaded their homes. Wounded, they chose to suffer the smoke and fire together rather than let the terror outside claim them. The Simantov family, like so many others, was erased in a single day by an act of unspeakable evil. Their home, a place once filled with the laughter of children, is now silent. Any reasonable person would have expected this council to act immediately and unequivocally to condemn the terror, the bloodshed, the inhumanity, to support Israel in its mission to dismantle the terror organization responsible for these atrocities. To expect anything less would be lunacy. Yet, here we are, 320 days since the slaughter, and what have we heard? Silence. No condemnation of Hamas. No recognition of the atrocities committed. The UN Security Council was created and charged with protecting peace after the horrors of the Holocaust. How could it not condemn the largest slaughter of Jews since the Holocaust? Yesterday, August 21st, was International Day of Remembrance for Victims of Terror. Here is your opportunity, your moment, to finally condemn the cold-blooded slaughter of over 1,000 innocent lives and the abduction of hundreds more in an act of pure terror. I hold no illusions. I have no expectations from the Council today. It has already made it clear that this International Day of Remembrance and Tribute does not apply to Israeli victims of terror. When future generations learn of this terrible period, they will look for the world's reactions to the evil committed against us. If they were only to look at the UN's response, they may not even know that Jews were massacred and kidnapped, because the United Nations cannot find the moral clarity to condemn these acts. Today, Israel fights on the front lines of the battle for civilization against terrorism and medieval barbarism. Our soldiers, our boys and girls in Gaza, they are fighting for their homes, for their families, their state, but it goes even deeper. They fight for the values and principles binding the entire liberal Western world. Today, it's Israel. Tomorrow, it can be everywhere. Distinguished colleagues, this war was forced upon us by men who called their parents to brag about having killed Jews, men who placed military command centers and weapons of war underneath UNRWA schools and hospitals, men who hold innocent babies within terror tunnels for almost a year. We did not ask for this war. We are neither intentionally killing civilians nor overseeing a famine. There is no famine in Gaza. Since the start of the war, Israel has facilitated more than 14,000 trucks carrying aid, including over 700,000 tons of food. We also continue to work with our partners addressing the medical needs in Gaza. Between December 23 and January 24, enough polio vaccines for over 2 million Gazans were delivered, partnering with WHO and UNICEF. Between 95 to 99% of Gazans are already vaccinated. This campaign is taking place without any UNRWA involvement. As we speak, another comprehensive vaccine campaign is being launched for children under the age of 10. With all due respect to our allies, the Israel Defense Forces have always taken pride in being the most moral army in the world. In impossible conditions, Hamas knows that causing civilian casualties and depriving their own people of food will generate public outcry. So that is what they do. They are very good at that. They put civilians in harm's way and deprive them of the aid the international community has provided. Rather than condemn Hamas's outrageous abuse of its own people, international aid organizations like UNRWA and other organs of the UN have chosen to collaborate with Hamas. How can these bodies be part of the solution when they intensify the problem? How can they help build the future when they destroy the path to it? Israel looks to the future. The Abraham Accords showed the Arabs across the region want a different future. Development and prosperity, not endless wars and terrorism. The Abrahamic peace is paving the way to that future through regional integration and partnership, innovation and entrepreneurship. We stand ready to extend these accords to Middle Eastern partners. Many Gazans, many people in Gaza want that future too. But Gaza stands at a crossroads. The defeat of Hamas will enable Gazan civilians to chart their own destiny in partnership with the most successful countries in the region, with your support. Let me be clear, there is no future for the people of Gaza with Hamas left in control. There is no rebuilding of Gaza with Hamas in control. There is no future for the border communities in southern Israel with Hamas in control. The day after Hamas isn't something in the far-off future. It's a process that it is beginning right now as our forces fight for our security, for the return of our hostages, and for a better future for everyone in Gaza and Israel. For the sake of the Palestinians and Israelis alike, we cannot allow the next generation of Gazans to be raised to hate Jews more than they love their children. So long as Hamas and its hateful ideology rule in Gaza, Gazans will never have a chance for a decent life. So long as terrorists carrying rifles and suicide vests are entrusted to administer aid, terrorists will stay rich and civilians will remain poor. We Israelis need no lessons on how to strive and sacrifice for peace, but we have learned through bitter experience that true peace is not possible so long as entire generations are taught to hate. Mr. President, Israel has no desire to occupy Gaza. Once Hamas's defeat has been secured and our hostages have been safely returned home, we want Gazans to administer their own affairs. Gazans who are not compromised by terror or incitement and who are committed to peace with their neighbors. But instead of supporting these aspirations for peace and stability, this council has become a forum for the world's most vile actors to sound off their hatred of Jews and Israel. I see the representative of the Palestinian Authority is still here. He has been sitting in that chair for 20 years. You have spent 2 decades in this place proposing resolutions which stir chaos, sow division, and avoid any hope. You have accomplished absolutely nothing but incite hatred and violence while claiming to be an advocate for peace. But I want to clarify an important point and I demand an answer, Mr. Mansour. Who do you represent here today? Who you represent here today? Do you represent the Hamas terror organization? Since October 7th, you have delivered hundreds of speeches, yet you have never uttered anything even resembling a condemnation of Hamas. Correct me if I'm wrong. Anyone have heard any condemnation for the Hamas atrocities? Mr. Mansour, if you cannot condemn them, you are one of them. You do not represent the Palestinian people. Mr. Mansour, you are a terrorist in a suit. I demand you to condemn Hamas. If you do not condemn them, you are one of them. Mr. President, we all know the role of Iran in this conflict. They are the suppliers and mentors of the terrorist proxies attacking Israel from all sides. They are attempting to trigger a regional war. Just look at Lebanon. The Iranian regime has used its proxy Hezbollah to drive the country into economic and political ruin, transforming what was once the Paris of the Middle East into a terrorist haven. While we were still fighting the Hamas savages in our own homes and communities, on October 8th, day after the attack, Hezbollah began its attack. We did not target them. There was no immediate dispute. Yet they launched hundreds of rockets towards our civilians in the north. Have you considered in this council what was the reason for Hezbollah's attack against Israel? Let me remind you, Nasrallah himself announced that they had joined the war on October 8th. They did so to show support and sympathy for Hamas. Let me repeat, they did so to show support and sympathy for Hamas while they murdered Israeli civilians. That is the reason for Hezbollah to start the attacks against Israel. Since that day, thousands of rockets have been launched at our communities. targeting innocent Israelis, destroying their homes, and murdering children as they played soccer with their friends. Over 100,000 of our civilians remain displaced. Let me be very direct with you. We have our limits. We are not interested in escalation, but Israel will do whatever is necessary to restore security to the northern border, return northern residents to their homes, and remove the threat posed by Hezbollah. If you truly care for regional security, now, don't wait. Don't wait for something to happen. Now is the time to speak up, demand and ensure that Lebanon and Hezbollah fully implement Resolution 701. So we will not meet here in a month or in a week and discuss the escalation in Israel and Lebanon. Mr. President, this Council has a choice: continue down the path of moral ambiguity or stand up for what is right. Condemn terrorism in all its forms and uphold the values of peace, justice, and human dignity. Let me be clear. The days when Jewish blood was spilled and there was no response are over. The days when the Jewish people were at the mercy of tyrants are over. We are the captains of our own ship, and we will take all necessary steps against those who wish to harm us. The world is watching, and history will judge you by your actions. Thank you, Mr. President.